Hey, hey, hey! It is time for Triad Radio, the final Triad Radio, the Illuminatus edition. And I'm here with Will, the master writer of it all. Will, how you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. Master Rider seems a bit generous, but I'll take it.
Depending on the night, you would name yourself even something even more
That's true.
illustrious.
That's true. Yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll see what the opinion is when the results are up. There'll probably be one super happy person and 13 disgruntled to downright angry individuals. So.
That is true. It's funny how that works.
Hmm.
When you win, the writer is the best writer ever. And
Yes.
then when you don't do as well, you can always find something to nitpick a little bit.
Yeah, he put two spaces after each period. That just really annoyed me. I'm downgrading this to a 5 out of 10.
Yeah, that always has annoyed me about you. I don't know when we're gonna get you to fix that, but
I don't know either, man. Even my sister's getting on to me now, and she's like 30, no, she's 40. I'm like, all right, okay, all right, I'll look into it.
oh man. Well, I can't believe we're here. We were just kind of reminiscing a little bit for those that are just listening and thinking back a year ago. Not to say that we didn't think we would get here, but it's just kind of surreal to think we actually are here at this point.
Yeah, yeah. Like I said in the pre-show, that nobody else got to hear but us and Bobby, who isn't here. But anyway, yeah, the year felt both short and excruciatingly long. There were periods of this expedition where I thought, there's no way, I can't do this. But we did. We got through it, and I give a lot of credit to you for that because just speaking for me and knowing how I am, there were a couple of times during this where I would have probably flipped the fuck out and like just thrown some people out of Triad and just said, "That's it, it's over. All right, I'm not doing this anymore." So, but you stayed consistent and you stayed strong and you kept it together.
Well, I appreciate that. I think we all had, it was kind of an interesting year because we all had periods where we would almost be reliant on each other to kind of pick up slack a little bit. I know this past the WIT trials was pretty tough on me with moving and getting a new job and all that kind of stuff. So I think you picked up a lot of slack there, and kind of at the end of Bravery, we kind of had role reversal a little bit. So
Mm-hmm.
I think the three-headed monster thing actually does work pretty well, and I
Mm-hmm.
think more feds should probably look into something like that because when there's burnout, and there always is, it's kind of nice to have somebody else that you can kind of rely on a little bit.
Yep, I agree, and I think what really helped um, with our cohesion as three co-owners is the fact that we were all three, good in different areas. So you didn't
Mm-hmm.
have like two quarterbacks or two point guards. You had a quarterback, a running back, and a wide receiver, and we all had our position and we played it to the best of our abilities. But if we got quote injured, somebody could step in and fill in for that position temporarily.
Yeah.
So it was just a really good team effort. And yeah, like you said, we picked each other up at times, and we wouldn't have got to the end without all three of us chipping in.
Yeah, I agree. It's just been been good to have that, and Bobby, he's always there to tell you that you suck, or he's that Mike Leach kind of coach that you always wanted, that just yells at you all the time and tells you how bad you are, and um, he's the glue that keeps us together.
Yeah, talks crap about your girlfriends for like some reason in the locker room. You're like,
yeah.
what does she have to do with it?
We're hoping that that he'll be able to hop in with us here in a little bit. I think he's got some other things going on right now, but
Yeah.
man, it's just exciting. We got people listening. I'm looking there now. We're up to 11. So
Mm-hmm.
hey, those of you in the live chat, feel free to just drop a line in there. We don't really have any set format for this other than maybe shoot the breeze for a little bit, answer some questions if you have questions, and then I think we've got a show tonight or something. Is that correct? We have some sort of results that need to be posted.
We've got some form of results to be posted. Now, will it be the AI Chet Dakota results, or will it be an actual, well-written, you know, thing of results? We'll see. I don't know.
Hey,
Yeah, we got results.
hey, listen, the AI stuff is a trend now, man. That's hitting the X big time here lately.
Yeah, it is. I didn't even realize that music I was listening to earlier was AI. I'm thinking, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of people rely on that AI these days.
Yep. So, I was thinking of a couple of things we could talk about while we see if any questions roll in. One question I thought was kind of interesting is uh, of all the people that didn't sign up for Triad, who would you have liked to have seen sign up for Triad the most? Of everybody out there that you're aware of, that you maybe recruited or put the word out to, or just hoped, I'd like to see them, give it a shot.
Man, that is a good question. Well, I didn't really recruit anybody because I didn't really know anybody outside of the OCW circle. Obviously, Crash was kind of in and out of the kind of retirement at the time. Right when we were starting things up, and I think they had his own Fed going on too. Would have been cool to see what he could have done. Just a different kind of take on a character, which is always kind of nice. Callie, if we could have ever gotten him to stick around OCW and come into this, I think he could have done really well in an environment like this.
Mm-hmm.
And Doug. I mean, we have this big history with ODJ, Doug, Malvados, a million other characters. I'm trying to think. I'm drawing a blank in some of the other characters. What's the one that he did? Xavier Lux. I think.
Yeah, Xavier Lux.
He had an OCW. I think he could have done really well in this as well. And so those are some names that I think would have been fairly successful. Their names in the business, and they travel around and they write other places. And then there are some names that I've heard, but I don't really have like a personal connection with, or that I wouldn't want to say. Obviously, there's like a Tara Raven. You hear that name all around Twitter, and would have been kind of cool to see what they could have brought to the table. But yeah, those would be my guys. What do you think? What about you?
Well, I really hoped James Raven would sign up, but he's just kind of, I think, done with the game. Brennan Devlin is the one that I really wish could have got involved, because whenever you end something like this, you're like, yeah, I'm finished, but you may not be. But I don't see myself running in Fed for a while, and I've never got to work with him, and I get along with him well, and he's a really good writer. It would have been cool to work with him at least once before, in theory, all this comes to a close. So that'd be the one. I really wish Devlin would have signed up and given it a shot, but the timing just wasn't wrong.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm not familiar with their work at all, so it's kind of like it's one of those names I hear, I see, all over the place. Sometimes in drama, sometimes not. But it's just one of those things that, I mean, even you think about, like, we're talking names of people that we would have liked to have seen sign up, and then you stop and think, well, what about the 20 names or more that we had to turn down every single trials? That did want to be part, that did sign up, and we didn't get a chance to see what they brought to the table. And sometimes, we're not perfect. Sometimes we made good draft choices, and sometimes we found out pretty quickly that we did not make a good draft choice. So looking back on some of those, we think, man, if we could have, like, what would Sean Parker have done had he been taken at the beginning of the strength trials, as an example? He came in and helped us at the end and didn't really have much footing there. But if he would have had, all that time, plus maybe moving into the WIT trials, he performed really well as it was. But that, that's just one person. That we looked back and we're like, yeah, we probably should have got him.
Yeah, that's funny you mentioned that, because my next question was going to be, who of the people that enlisted and didn't get drafted, who do you wish would have got drafted?
Oh, man. I'm going to have to go back in time and check out these lists again. You got
Yeah,
some?
yeah, I got some.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
I got a couple. Mark Cross. I kind of regret not picking him.
Yeah.
Uh, Travis Levitt. I worked with him a little bit, and he seemed like a nice guy, and he's pretty talented. I would have liked to work with him. And but the biggest one to me was, and you mentioned it earlier, Atara Raven.
Mm-hmm.
Because she was so excited about the concept, and she's so big into like Greek mythology, and you're going to see some of that in tonight's show. And I think she would have just really loved what we were doing. And the only reason I didn't take her is because I've worked with her a couple of times, and she's no show. She has a tendency to just kind of not fulfill her obligations. Nothing wrong with that. She just does. And I didn't want to risk that. Of course, I took my boy Mario, and he was done after week one. But that was more of a nepotism pick, sure. But yeah, I would have, in hindsight, I would have not drafted Mario, and I would have probably given Raven a shot and let her have some fun with it, and see what happened.
Yeah. So give me some time to think here. I like I said, Atara Raven was the name that came to mind immediately when you asked about that question. Looking back at some of these names that signed up, like and this wasn't necessarily 100% on us as far as the draft goes, but I think back to like the Aaron Blue, who had thrown their name in the ring, a really strong, sample role play, was definitely in consideration, and then they came to me privately and kind of had some real life stuff going on, and they didn't officially pull their name out of the hat, but they let me know that it was probably best not to go that route. And so, kind of looking back, wishing maybe timing was a little better there, would definitely have been cool. I think about the Avenger. I know that seemingly the personality is kind of up and down on Twitter, but there was so much to the writing there. We had talked about how it was kind of a shame that they didn't get a chance. Those are probably the two big ones that kind of come to mind. I'm looking back over what we see here, what we had. Those would be the ones for sure. Of course, and Jay Mont, Jay Mont's always a great writer. We had, Dre with, I don't know if it was Veronica or Tamika.
I don't know. I like Dre, but he would sign up, and then when he thought he wouldn't get drafted, he would just not only erase his application, but his entire account from the song. So I don't know when he signed up or as who. He leaves no trace.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, as far as, like, I think if the writing talent was there, that could definitely, hang with a lot of the guys that we were dealing with. So, those would be, as far as characters, maybe that'd be a better way to say it, like characters that could have done well, or I think could have done well. I think any of the Straders that he had would be good for that.
You mentioned an Avenger. I'm glad you brought him up because he completely just left my mind. But that's someone that I think, had he got in, I think he could have been a pleasant surprise. It's a very well-defined character with a lore, and I think he would have told an interesting story. And I think he could have done well. So that's one, that I wish, if we had a do-over, maybe have him in those strength trials instead of a couple other people who maybe didn't really get the experience.
Yeah, for sure. And then, of course, we had a lot of folks that we tried the Tribulation experiment, and there were some names there that were incredible writers that just, I think the Tribulations was would have been a cool idea on its own, but trying to do it with regular Triad proved to be just too much for us, maybe, and as well as the writers to kind of keep track of everything. So. It worked pretty well as far as the second chance thing, but when we tried to venture out and make it its own deal there for Wit, we probably overextended, and so a lot of those writers who were good writers just kind of got lost in the shuffle, I think, and then we had some quit just randomly. It ended up being a dud, but it happens.
It was tough because spring hit us hard. A lot of people don't know, and I'm not going to get into real big specifics, but you're changing jobs and you're moving, and it's a lot of that time that you have eaten up. Bobby's working more than he ever has,
Mm-hmm.
and it's eating up a lot of his extra time. And then I'm getting all this. I'm doing this acting stuff, which is just growing, and it's and like I was telling you earlier today or yesterday, my creative outlet was e-fetting. Now I'm getting that in other areas. So e-fetting is just kind of this thing that exists with no real purpose, and it makes it hard to find the time and to, more importantly, rationalize finding the time to type a show like I just typed for today. I mean, that was a lot of work. So, and I'm not going to e-fed and do it any way that I know how, which is give it everything I got.
Right. Yeah, I mean it's just the reality. It was, I mean, when you commit a full year, we talked about it a minute ago how it was, it's nice to have each other to fall back on, but when you commit a full year to something, um, it it gave us some structure to live. I mean, I think had we not sat down and put those dates on paper and said we're committing to this show, this show, this show, these dates. Then we take a break to kind of regroup and refire, and then I think if we had not done the front end planning, we probably wouldn't have got here. And I think
that's a good point.
And I think that's a lesson, if you want to say, to maybe anybody who is a Fed head or wants to dip their toes, because this is really the first time. I mean, other than 98, 1999, I'm, everybody's starting their own Fed for 3 weeks and then it dies out. But it's in terms of my first experience in the day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month deal. I think having that structure, knowing, okay, if we can just get to this date, we get a break. If nothing else, it just mentally really prepared us to handle it. And of course, you've done this thing for years and years. You're the true expert when it comes to it. But even with that said, just running OCW week to week, you have a bad day or somebody ticks you off, like you kind of mentioned earlier, you're just like, "Oh, screw this thing," and you just quit, just burn it. And we didn't have that option here because we had a clear in-game insight. We knew what we wanted to do, and we had some hiccups, but I do think that overall we executed pretty well as it pertained to that.
I agree, and another important fact was we made those dates public. So it was like, if we don't finish them out, people have the receipts,
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, they couldn't do it, But yeah, e-fetting, there's a common joke in e-fetting about these e-fed pregnancies and how they never last 9 months. They go like 5 weeks or something.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because e-fedders don't have a real long attention span. They can't do the slow burn. Things never really cook. They just happen really fast and then they move on to something else. So to have a year-long plan that stays on a consistent path and pays off at the end, that's very rare in this game. Like, you'll have matches that are like a year in the making, but it's not on purpose. It's an accident.
Mm-hmm.
Like a guy quit the Fed for 6 months, comes back, and they have a rematch. Oh yeah, this is the match 7 months in the making. Yeah, well, did you plan that? I don't think so. But to have something like this to pay off in a year, it's hard to do in this game. It really is, because there's so much that goes on with just running it and the people involved and the handlers, and nothing holds us here. We're not being paid,
right.
So you can just get up and walk at any point, and to keep everybody focused. And yeah, it's a pretty rare thing to achieve. So from what I've seen in this game, anyway.
And I think to credit the handlers, especially the ones who stuck with us and wanted to keep coming back, and maybe didn't get the opportunity to, like I think of like an Alex Raven who, was picked in bravery, did not do very well across the board there, in terms of success against the opponents. I mean, his writing was great. He was a great handler, great sport in it all. But he did manage to get on the winning team, and so he doesn't get drafted in strength. He doesn't get drafted in wit. It's been like 6-7 months at that point that we haven't seen him in terms of character in the story of Triad. And so for somebody like him to stay motivated and stay hungry and keep waiting for the opportunity to get into the Illuminatus, I think it just speaks volumes. And I just use him as an example. We had several that were remained throughout the whole thing, just true to the process and the idea of Triad, because we did ask them to do something they've never had to do before, in terms of, put the quote personal life on hold as the character and dive into this mythical, who knows where we might end up kind of, situation that we're in, where the fate of the entire world hangs in the balance of what happens tonight, in theory. And so, hats off to all of those guys, from bravery, strength, wit, all the way around. Those that kind of hung out in the tribulations with us, who took the ride, who, when we presented it, I remember the first radio when we presented things and people were talking about E-Fed Indiana Jones and, making those kind of connections. And just, I think based off of what you've told me tonight's going to look like, if you're a fan of Triad, not necessarily role playing, not necessarily who wins or who loses, but if you're a fan of the lore and the mythology that we created, I think tonight is going to be a really great payoff for you.
Yeah, I hope so. That was sort of my feeling. When I finished writing this, I thought, I always ask myself, are people going to enjoy this? Because I enjoy pretty much everything that I put effort into writing. And I thought, yeah, the people who are into the story, I think it's going to be a satisfying payoff for them. The people who, like you said, are just in it for personal notoriety or wins and losses, if they don't win, they'll check out real quick and they'll be like, oh, yeah, it was fine. But that's fine, because it wasn't written for them. It was written for the people who are along for the ride and who enjoy what we're doing and everybody that's involved with it. So I'm happy with it as it is right now. We'll see what the results are and what the reviews come out to be, but I'm happy with what I wrote. So, and that's not going to change.
Yeah, well, I think there's never been a question that you're one of, if not the best results writer in the game, and you take a lot of pride in what you do. And so, coming in from a co-owner perspective, I've certainly appreciated you taking on that function, because while I can do it, it is definitely not something that I probably would have done long term. I don't think I have it in me to do the results week in, week out like that. So. And then to keep things so well connected, I think that's really the coolest thing, is bringing in everything from role plays, anything that these guys have kind of helped bring to the table, and just keeping all that organized. It's a rare thing to be able to do.
So looking back, what was your favorite show throughout this? Not counting tonight, obviously, but your favorite show the entire run here, if one stands out.
Oh goodness. So, on a small personal bias, I am proud of what I put out for the Ghost Ship. I don't think it's the best show, and I'll put that out there now. I don't think it's anywhere near probably one of the best shows that we've seen. But in terms of just maybe stretching me to a point where, because like I said, I'd never done that before, put together, I think I did one show in OCW. We did like a Tuesday night equality, and I kind of took the lead on that thing. And so this was the first like show where it was like, man, if I don't write this thing, it ain't getting written. And my Southern just came out there. I apologize. I tried. But so as far as like just a personal accomplishment, I appreciate that. Was one that I liked. I think the Encore, really all the pay-per-views, I think were just tremendous.
Yeah.
Encore Anguish was great. The Niagara, what do we call it? Under or Against the Current.
Yeah.
Just fantastic, tying all that in and bringing some of that mythology in, and the craziness that is Triad. And probably one, I know that it maybe is a cop-out to say, but probably the initial show that we did. It was just so, it was like the first one, and everybody was so excited. Looking at the talent, like we've had some crazy talented writers, but Bravery for me was the best time I think I had, because everybody was committed to the goal of Triad because everybody was signing up based off of just the explanation of what this was. We didn't have a track record yet.
Yeah.
And I think the track record got created during Bravery when we went 60 for 60 in role plays, and people like America who he struggled throughout, and he still showed up every week to post. Was still trying to get better. And then the organic thing that happened with the Helena and Knox and Stratford story, where it just sort of randomly, you wrote, I don't know if what your mindset was there, but you wrote the idea there of Knox pinning Helena to avoid, sacrificing her to Strat, and then to see all that kind of accidentally, but a happy accident, that the points played out to where we could see that same story culminate at Ghost Ship. I think just the whole Bravery itself, probably the storylines and how everything just worked out almost too perfectly, honestly. Probably set us up for some of the headaches we saw later on because of how great the cast of characters we had to play with was, and just the newness of it all hadn't worn off yet.
Yeah, if I had to put it in about as few words as possible, I would say Bravery was almost like a family. Like we were all connected and we were all in this thing together at the ground floor to build it up. Strength was like just a war. I mean, it was just people in there trying to get their own and just fighting to prove themselves, and it was tough.
Mm-hmm.
And then Wit was like a party. It was just a bunch of people having fun, But Bravery was definitely felt more connected with everyone throughout the Bravery trials than the other ones. It certainly had this sort of small, cohesive family vibe to it.
Yeah, I agree. So which show was your favorite, especially to write? From a writer's perspective, which one are you most proud of before tonight?
I liked the initial show, as you said. It was a breeze to write. The Harvey Marks Chicago Tower show was fun because it was so different, and I had been writing triple threats and fatal four ways and triple threats and fatal four ways, so that was fun. But I really liked the Angkor Anguish pay-per-view because everything that Bobby had given us idea-wise, I was able to parlay into all these different matches that just sort of built into the next and built into the next.
Yeah.
And then with the dragon and stuff and being able to just kind of get kind of crazy with it, with Alias and these other characters it was fun. It felt like writing an entire story rather than a series of matches, and it was so it was probably my favorite. And it was also like, thank God the strength trials are over. I was like, thank God that's over.
It was, and we had some trying times. I don't know that it was as bad as sometimes we make it out to be, but it definitely, when we compare it to Bravery, I think that's when you kind of get spoiled a little bit, like we said, with who we were working with, and everybody was moving toward the same goal, and it just had a different feel to it, and whatever. I mean, different people in different spots, and it could be somebody going through something at the wrong time, and whatever, but. We got through it, and I agree with you. Wit was certainly more fun. Kind of brought us back a little bit to some of the feels with Bravery, but I think we lost the community a little bit with Wit, because one of the things with Bravery that I thought was just the coolest was especially once we had started the draft, and when we just started the Discord, and everybody just came in, even if they weren't part of it. We had just so many people in the Discord just chilling out, trivia. All that kind of stuff, and the community that was built at the onset was kind of one of the things that I liked the most. And I think toward the end here we've kind of lost that a little bit, but maybe now that the stakes aren't quite as high and everybody's just kind of chilling out and doing other things or getting ready to go do other things, who knows? Maybe it'll come back a little bit, and we'll definitely, at least talk about leaving the Discord open if anybody wants to pop in and say hi or whatnot. But I think I don't know. It's just interesting. There's a lot of reflection, that goes into it.
Yeah, really. Yeah, I know. For me personally, I just kind of checked out midway through the strength trials. It was
Hmm.
just OOC and was just going to write the matches because I was at the point to where if I dealt with much more, I was going to purge myself probably. um, but yeah, so and I know a lot. There was just a lot of. It's nobody's fault. It was just it got so big after the bravery trials, and I think there's something to be said for drafting, you know, maybe not drafting all the best role players, like getting a nice mix of talented role players, good OC personalities, funny, likable people. I don't think you need 12 heavy hitters. I think because in Bravery we had maybe what I would call 4 or 5 main event talents, and then we had a good mid card, and then we had a really fun undercard, and it made for a nice sort of layer of talent. But then when we got to strength, it was like 16 main eventers. It was
Yeah,
really hard,
yeah,
and everybody wanted to win, and not everybody could win. And then we were doing fatal four ways, elimination style, to where every match, 3 main event level talents and egos are getting pinned in every match, and it really it's a testament to the people involved that we didn't have more people quit, because these are people that aren't used to getting beat every single show.
yeah, yeah. That maybe was an oversight. We look back and I don't know that we necessarily need to explain anything when it comes to why
Yeah.
we decided to go with 4 teams and whatnot. I think a lot of people assume that it was a way to placate or whatever, but it was actually an idea that we had during Bravery when we knew that there were going to be so many people, signing up. And I think we kind of had a discussion. I don't remember exactly how it went, but I remember us saying, okay, will the triumvirate be drafted again? Like, would you take Vodka Strat, Wolf? And the answer was yes, we would. And
Mm-hmm.
so that created a scenario where you want 12 new riders potentially to join and see what happens in strength. We knew we were going to draft those 3. Nickelman had already earned a spot. And so it was like, do we just take 8 now? And, and that didn't even include anybody who maybe wanted to try to come again, like Cat
Mm-hmm.
Cortez or something like that. And so we found ourselves in a spot where we might have only had 5 or 6 new names, so to speak. And I think we had like 30 some people trying out, had enlisted
There's a
for it.
lot.
So it was like we kind of had this idea early on. What about a 4th team? But we didn't know how to do it. And then as the results of Bravery played out, and those 3 sort of formed that faction, it just made sense to have them have that 4th team kind of go rogue. And we kind of came up with this story on the side. Should we have just opened it up and told everybody that's what was happening instead of trying to make it a little bit more, hidden and kind of wrestling, kayfabe? I don't know. That's for the masses to decide. But I think overall it was a good idea. But it did put us in a predicament of 4 people in a match, 16 people to manage, 16 role plays to read. It certainly did extend the amount of work that we ended up having to do.
Yeah, and I think and I don't think I'm gonna hurt anybody's feelings saying this. I think it also kind of put Backus at a disadvantage because he's coming in as this big star, but he's immediately thrown on triumvirate, and he's suddenly like, the 4th member,
Right.
rather than being his own guy. And I think he was trying to adjust to them and what they were doing rather than being able to just do his own thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that kind of held him back a little bit from being able to reach his full potential. But that's the thing. You try stuff. That's what Triad was. It's innovation. It's experimentation, and it was an idea. And we're heavy on story, and it made sense to make Triumvirate the bad guys. But I don't know. They were like, we don't want to be heels, and I'm like, you don't want to be heels? Oh God. But but yeah, whatever. We tried. It was good. I'm happy we did it, and I'm happy nobody got killed over it. So
Yeah. And I mean, at the end of the day, we learned, just like anything else, you try
Yeah.
things. Some things work, some things don't. You keep some things, you throw some things away. We definitely learned early on we wanted to go back to 12, and so that's what we did, and we were able to kind of wrap that triumvirate story up for the
Yeah.
moment anyway, which was kind of nice, and we were able to go with 12, not necessarily new faces, but certainly different in terms of that for Wit, knowing that we still had the Illuminatus to bring in, those old characters to, come full circle. And it was nice, again, it doesn't, I mean, obviously we like what we like in terms of when we read things. So to see, something like Cat and Vodka in the finals of Bravery with Thad, and then move on into Strength, and you're going to see Cat and Vodka in the finals again, due to how much we enjoy their work, clearly. But it was nice to see when a writer that was so good, but ran up against just a juggernaut, had the opportunity to come back again, and then they were able to get in. And that was kind of one of the things that was like with Warstein, for example, just somebody who started out with us, continued through the process, obviously didn't love every result that came along the way, but stuck with it, went character to character until he found something that really started to work. And now he gets to be in the Illuminatus. Knox, who, was gung-ho about this from day one. And probably when you look back at some of the things, should I have done it differently? We probably should have drafted Knox the second time around.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he still came in and helped us. And then we probably should have drafted Knox third time around.
Yeah, for sure.
And so it was kind of this thing where, like, he was always there, always willing to be the guy to jump in. And then, we gave him this opportunity. Storyline wise, it seems too perfect. But I mean, like, we did tell him, hey, if you'll come in and help us one more time and you can win, we'll let you in. Because we did have that extra spot. And so he still did earn his way in, just like everybody else that's involved here. So it was really cool that we had these guys who, were there at the beginning, didn't necessarily get in the, quote, conventional way, but stuck with it. And we were able to come up with conceivable reasons that they still had to earn it. And I'm kind of proud of that, because I think of the 14 the 14 that we have, all deserve to be there. 100%. Obviously we had some no-shows for whatever reason in the Illuminatus in terms of role plays, but everybody that was there shined at the right moment in their own way. And I think, the results tonight, in some ways, you might be, without spoiling anything, I think there's going to be some things that are expected, and there's going to be some things that will catch you off guard a little bit, because we've seen all these people, but we've not seen all of them in the same match, on the same even playing field. And so it's going to be interesting to see, who ends up with who, and what sort of dynamic that plays as we go forward.
Yeah, going back a little bit to what you were saying, a lot of respect for Raven and Knox and Warstein, and Warstein and Knox especially, because these are two guys that they can go to any Fed and immediately be promised all these main event spots, title shot, and they're over here in Triad, and like Warstein especially, he won one match I think in Bravery, and then he didn't win another match until Wit, and he's in there with his different characters, and he's getting almost the same feedback every time, and it's not what he wants to hear, but he never bitched. He never threw a fit. He never quit. He hung in there, and he kept trying. And then he gets in those Wit trials, and I think those Wit trials were top to bottom the strongest trials. Just a lot more chill, OC personalities. And he gets in those Wit trials, and what did he win? 2, 3 matches?
Yeah, he was strong. The computer picked a good winning team in the Wit trials. I mean, that's for sure. Like that. Top to bottom. And if there's one thing that you kind of, if you could go back and change something. I don't know if you've thought about that or had a question about that, but
Mm-hmm.
would there be a way, because of the draft, people don't necessarily know this, or maybe they do, but the drafts that we did were legit drafts. We did
Yeah.
not sit down and talk about, oh well, these four would make a good team, or the drama that could unfold between these characters would be good. I mean, we knew who we specifically wanted, and we drafted, and then then we did record the show later after we drafted.
Yeah.
It gave me time to make match graphics and make it look like more of a cool presentation. But in terms of the actual drafts, I mean, we were doing that live. So if we could go back and not necessarily even the teams out, but if there's one regret, it's that with Bravery and Wit, the conclusion was pretty much known going into the final show who was going to win.
Yeah.
And so that would be my only regret. Would how could we have balanced the teams so that there was at least some sort of drama in terms of who was going to the Illuminatus? But
I know in the process when we were coming up with the idea, we had talked about being able to trade guys back and forth, move them around. But maybe in hindsight, that's something we could have done. But it was already so. The thing is, when you roll out an idea like this and people haven't experienced it, it already comes across as so confusing.
Mm-hmm.
And you really want to keep it as simple as possible so people can digest what they're signing up for. And then you add in trades, and then it can get really confusing.
Yeah, for sure. What else you got? You got any more questions, or you want to open it up to some of these?
Well, if anybody's got a question, by all means, drop it in the Discord or here in the chat. I was going to say, who do you wish that was in the trials and didn't make the Illuminatus? Who do you wish was in the Illuminatus?
Okay, so the first name that would come to mind would easily be Penelope. The character came in to Bravery, and I thought, my gosh, this person is perfect for what we're trying to do. I just the first role play, the ideas they were having about going to try to figure out a way to conjure up the spirits in the in the Caribbean to go after the Triad. Like, I just thought this person is tailor made for a world like this that we have. And I drafted them in Bravery, and they were right there at the end with Kat as my second on the team. And then didn't get a chance to draft them in Strength, but decided, hey, I want to give this person another try. So in Wit, we had him come back, and it just didn't work out. As far as the team aspect, I think, like I said, TLS just had a better team overall, and it was really hard to overcome that. So that's a character that I think I would love to see in there, simply because there's so much of the what do you call it? Like the supernatural. Yes, thank you. Supernatural elements that tie in really well, and I think Alias, the character, kind of fits in that same mold. Obviously, the handler is still in the Illuminatus, but in terms of character, Alias can do just about anything, and it makes kind of sense a little bit. So as far as characters go, those would be two, I'd say.
We got a couple questions here in the chat. I'll go real quick. I will echo Penelope for the simple fact that I love to reward hard work and commitment, and they were about as committed to this as anybody. Kind of like Raven, kind of like Parker, kind of like Knox. And I think maybe if I could do the last month over again, I would have given them that 15th spot that just stayed open.
Yeah.
But there was no storyline reason to do it, But I feel like you should. I feel it would have been nice to reward their commitment and their interest and their hard work into Triad and put them in there. One other one is Dionysus. I would have liked to have seen Dionysus maybe come back or get on another team, because he was pretty good in those strength trials. and we all really liked his writing. And I loved writing his character. And I think he would have been a fun character to have seen in the match tonight.
Yeah, I agree. I think that was one, maybe even overlooking when I was thinking back. But he was on my team, and just a great team player, great writer, understood exactly what we were trying to do, and I think the character would have done really well.
Now, before we get to these questions, I had one more question.
Okay.
That was of all the people that you met here in Triad for the first time. Give me some names of people that you really enjoyed getting to know throughout this process. I mean, we enjoyed everybody, but some that just stand out as like, wow, I would have never met them and got to know them had it not been for this.
Yeah, so easily you got Warstein, you got Knox. I think Knox was a guy that is all over Twitter all the time. But being in OCW and pretty much being loyal to OCW, I didn't really want to venture out. I think I had talked myself into doing the World Series of Wrestling thing, so I think I would have gotten to know some of these people, through that, had Triad not come into our thoughts. But I think Knox was a guy super cool to hang out with, in the Discord. Obviously Warstein is just a fun guy. Raven, a lot of those guys that hang out, even with Paul Freedom. I know that it's only been kind of recent, but Paul Freedom, Untitled, they're just really cool. I love, and this is one of the, I'll go back to, because this isn't Triad at all, but Crash. When I first came back to OCW and got in the Discord there, I always love somebody who will just do a bit with you for no reason at all. Like, you're just in the Discord, you say something stupid, and instead of trying to, go against it, you just run with it. Oh yeah, you're, whatever, and then you're just like, yeah, I love it, and then just move on. And I always appreciated an Untitled would just be that kind of person. You would say something completely off the wall, and they are right there with you, just going into it. And those are kind of people I just think are just cool to hang out with, just in Discord in general. So, gosh, there's a million names. You really shouldn't ask that question. And then
it's kind of because then somebody's like, well, they didn't mention me. I mean, we enjoyed everybody. I'm just thinking off the top of my head, I wanted to just give a shout out to Untitled because they're strictly angled. They tried this. They struggled at first, but they evolved, told their story, and then they won their final match. And I think they really enjoyed it. And I enjoyed giving them a platform to come in and be creative in a competitive environment. And Dickie Watson is another one I want to mention because prior to working with them, I'd heard some things about how maybe they're kind of standoffish, maybe not, the easiest person to deal with, and they were a breeze. They were awesome. They were friendly. They never had any problem with any of their results. They're a great writer, and I just want people out there to listen to this. If you've got a negative opinion of Dickie Watson, don't. They're a great handler, great writer. Take a chance on them. So everybody else, loved everybody. Parker, Raven, everybody in the chat, love you guys. We had a great time. So
yeah, and you get somebody like Kat Cortez, I think in some ways they might have been one of the coolest people to talk to, but they just didn't hang out very much. They just kind of came. They would come in right on, usually the night that you had to post deadline, say a couple funny things, and then you didn't see them for 2 weeks. So, that might be somebody you kind of like to get to know a little bit better, but I also understand, you get to stay out of a lot of drama if that's how you roll.
So not a bad strategy.
Appreciate that. It's kind of probably a smart way to do things.
Yep. All right. So we got a few questions here. This is from Paul Freedom. Okay. What was the highest female score a role player received during the competition?
Okay, so I was looking back. I saw him post that. I was looking back. Now I'm going off of memory here, so on bravery and strength. But in the bravery finals, I believe the top three, and they all were in the main event match. It was Thad, Cat, and Vodka. I think we initially had all of them around the 14 number, right at 14.
Mm-hmm.
at least within a tenth of each other.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely remember that. I don't think any of them actually did get to that 14. I could be wrong. Um, in strength, we did not have any 14s. We had a lot of people get close. We had a lot of 13.5 and above, like a lot of those. But in
Mm-hmm.
terms of the overall, because that's the thing is like one of us will really, really like a role play, and somebody else will be
Yeah.
like, yeah, it could have been
And
better.
then, and then,
And
and then
so,
Bobby comes in and just hammers it.
yeah. And so, like, I will say this because maybe getting a little, pulling the curtain back a little bit, but like
Yeah.
Bobby was notoriously low with role play grades.
Yeah.
You and I were kind of within maybe a tenth or two most of the time. We were pretty consistent, I feel like, in terms of
Yeah.
what we were giving. And so, like, for you to get a 14, that's pretty high. Like, that's almost impossible simply because Bobby's grades were so low. They were low for
Yeah.
everybody. It wasn't like it was,
Yeah.
well, I'm going to give this guy a 10 because I don't like him. I'm going to give this guy 15. No, like something that both of us would have thought was like 14.2 or 14.3, he's coming in with like 13.1 and you're like, but
Oh, it's not even that. I remember we're grading and you're like a 13.4 and I'm like a 13.25. And then Bobby's grade comes in, it's 11. We're like, oh, shit, Bobby, it ain't that
but
bad.
but because he was consistent, that wasn't a problem because it was still that still might have been his highest grade he gave that week. It just happened to be he just had that higher, if you want to call it maybe standard or whatever. So looking back on night, so here we are, night 10 of Wit. When Mayhew, it was the main event was Mayhew, King, and Plethora, and Mayhew that night got 14.13.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah,
and
that was real close too. Him and King, I think.
And King was at 14 on the dot, so they were within like 0.13 of each other, 1300, and then like looking back, anything else? I think we had one. Okay. Night 12, King got 14 again. Cypher had 13.96 that night. That's crazy high. And they were against each other. So, I mean, you talk about what stinks. Like you have the second best role play of the night, and you happen to be against the guy who got the first best.
Yeah.
That's what makes the Triad experience so. I can't imagine how frustrating it would be from the writer's perspective because, like, okay, here's really peeling back the curtain. Night 12, the match between Plethora, Parker, and Warstein. Warstein won the match with a 13.56. Parker was second with a 13.55. And Plethora was last with 13.53.
That's crazy. I didn't realize it was that close.
It was 0.03 of a point away from first place to last place. And, Biff's always a great sport, but I mean, you walk away with a 0 when you're that close. I mean, it's just the competition level here was ridiculous. But I love that question because it's a really great question, and it really just does shine a light on how difficult these grades did get sometimes.
Mm-hmm. I do think if the grades come out for tonight's show, I think there's a couple of really high grades there also.
Yeah, I didn't even want to look at those simply because like that would be giving away a little bit of what's going on here.
True. True.
Let's say, I think it's safe to say, I think you'll be okay with me saying this. I think we had at least 2 who beat the number that I just told in terms of overall grade, and I'll just leave it at that. And we had at least 2, and I think that's safe without going too much and giving too much away.
I think so.
But yeah, we definitely saw I think it's safe to say, I think we saw the best role play in the Illuminatus.
Next question. What was your favorite role play of the entire trials?
Oh, well, I don't know if I can answer that. based off of what I just said, I don't know if I can answer that.
We'll exclude tonight's show. I'm trying to think of one that sticks out. I really liked the Cortez brother role play. That was a really good role play.
Yeah.
That one stands out in my mind. And I'm trying to think if there's another one. The Dionysus, his second to last role play was really good too. I really like that one. I like Dad's very first role play. When I read Dad's very first role play, I thought, oh man, he's going to be hard to beat. And Sahara, I think their first role play was really good. Those are some that you're talking. Oh, and Strats, was it his last role play? I thought that was really good too. And those kind of good. There was a lot of good role plays.
Yeah.
But those are the ones that stand out in my mind.
So the cat with the brother, really that whole arc that they did during Strength was just about unbeatable. Honestly, the one that stood out to me during Wit, and I just thought I went straight back to it, and I'm looking at my grades now on it. Was Kings on night 10. I read that thing and I thought to myself, this might be the perfect role play. I
remember that.
I just couldn't. For me, I couldn't go with 5s across the board just because I can't imagine grading something that high. But I mean, I graded that thing the highest I graded any for sure in this competition, and just the whole dynamic with the brother and the dad, the brother relationship and the dad, and just all of it. And then that guy knows how to shoot too. So it's like, it's like, storyline. Some people just blow it out of the park, and then some people are really great at the promo, but they don't put it together. And then you get a role play like this where it's got everything. That one was fantastic. I loved all of Vodka's stuff, and I always love all of Vodka's stuff, but probably Bravery the most. Like the Uncle Earl, gosh, man, that first role play. I mean, I'm just rolling laughing the whole time in a great way, because it's witty, it's cutting edge, it's right there to the edge, but doesn't quite go too far into the crazy. But those are two that I just remember. And there's some that like every week you look forward to reading, and then there's some that catch you off guard with how well,
like Parker's Anchor Anguish role play. I'm like, holy shit, this guy, he came to play. He went from being a guy that was middle of the pack to this guy could win it. And Raven's Anchor Anguish role play. He had missed the whole trial, came in, I thought, whoa, look at this guy.
Yeah.
So those were two role plays that elevated them in my mind from solid to really good. And guys that could win the trial.
And just as a shout out, I know that he doesn't need it or want it necessarily, but the first Dad Bod role play kind of was. I don't know that it's the best, but it showed how effortless something could appear, whether it was actually effortless or not to write. I just remember reading that role play and thinking, gosh, this is too easy for him. Like the way he's able to take a character that should have no business being successful and make him relatable, make him dynamic, and give him a story to work with. Just a great writer all around. Obviously Mayhew's a better character, but I was thoroughly impressed with that role play.
Yep. All right. Lexi Gold asks, "Are you looking for more heels or faces in your Fed?" Well, I appreciate the question, but our Fed's finished. So,
yeah.
But I don't know. Good mixture of both. I think faces. I think faces is something I would look for in a Fed, because I think somewhere along the way people just like to be in between or be heels, and you've had very few true faces. So if I had to, if we were still open, I think I would answer faces.
Yeah, face is hard to write. I mean, speaking from somebody who has basically been a face the entirety of my time in the hobby, because it's hard to write something scathing against somebody until they do
Mm-hmm.
something to you first. Because as a face, that's just not something your character would do.
Yeah.
And you know, I think back just real quick, like with OCW, it wasn't until I didn't love working with the guy 100%, but it wasn't until I got paired with JPD in that feud that
Oh my
I was
God.
really allowed to let Pick be a little bit edgy, because
Sure.
that's just not what a baby face does. So if you can find somebody as a Fed head, I mean, I think all the time, I think every Fed head would probably say the same thing is,
Well, the thing about feuding with JPD is he's such a shitty character. Like you could like murder his mom on TV right in front of him, and you'd get cheered. So
yeah,
he's just that bad. You could do anything to the guy, and you'd be a face.
you could do that in real life and get cheered OOC, like.
Yeah. Oh man. All right, Alice, for the question. The person who wins the Triad Championship trophy at the end of tonight, do you give them permission to defend it in another Fed?
It's a great question.
I agree.
Let me say this. I can honestly say this, and you can believe me or not. I don't know what happens to the Triad tonight. I don't know if it gets. And I'm saying this because I know who wins, but Will has kept me in the dark, and he's kept Bobby in the dark. He wants us to just enjoy it with everyone else. So I cannot answer the question as what somebody's going to do with it because I don't know what happens to it. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, that's fair.
What do you think? We get any spoilers?
Well, I don't want to give anything away. I think that's a question that we'll have to address with the winner after the show goes up.
Okay, fair enough.
Let's see if there's any more questions in here. I'm scrolling down now, catching up with the chat. Dad God's first roleplay was my favorite. There's TLS being, totally non-biased in the chat. Let's see. That's why you're my favorite. Da, da, da. Yeah, I think that's all the questions. I think so. Yeah, I think we've got all the questions. So.
Okay.
Well, is there any final comments or remarks or anything you'd like to give before we get off here and start breaking hearts and dashing dreams?
Oh man. This was it's fairly well documented. We've talked about how the idea of Triad came up, but this was one of those things where it's kind of interesting that I don't think any of the three of us were actually looking to do this. It was a thing where you had taken some time away and kind of come back. We were just chatting about what does it look like if it's not just one person having to do stuff, and then it sort of evolved into, well, what could we do that's different because we don't want to do the same thing. We're not doing OCW, we're not doing another wrestling company, and so I think for me, scratching whatever little bug there was or whatever itch there was to do a Fed head thing, getting to do it with two guys that, if there's anything that's maybe miraculous about this is that we're still all cool.
Yeah.
Like if you think of, and I'm not talking about us personality wise, but you think about just fedding in general, that no egos. It has been seamless, and obviously Bobby took some time. You took some time. I was out for a while. I don't know that it could have still gone any better. Honestly, it was just it was fun. It was fun to hang out with you guys in Discord and talk about what we were doing and bounce ideas off. It was. I got to stretch myself with graphics that I had never done before and done some cool things, I think, there. And it's just been a fun time just reflecting because it's kind of bittersweet. It's like.
It is, yeah.
The end of something here with Triad. And it's our baby that we created. It's not just a thing, but it happens to be something that we started out. I was looking back at some of the old things, and were bouncing ideas for names, and I think at one point we were going to call it arete or something like that. It was like a Greek word, and
Yeah.
it was just kind of
Did
funny
Bobby
how,
like?
in
Go,
true Bobby
really?
fashion, he told us that was stupid, and
Yeah.
then we went with something else, and eventually landed on Triad. But it was just kind of cool to think back to. We saw this early May inception of an idea in 2023, and we were like, well, what do we do? And we kind of planned out, and we started. I think the coolest thing, maybe my favorite thing, was creating the Twitter account and just posting
Yeah.
random stuff for a while, and nobody had a clue what was going on.
Yeah, the hype was awesome. It was really cool because at the time you had Ticket going and nobody knew what Ticket was.
Yeah.
You had all this weird eFed stuff going on Twitter. And I think we're the only one that survived.
Yeah, there were a lot of where Arcadia did its thing. I don't think it was meant. It wasn't meant to be a long-term thing at the time. And they did a great job there. And but yeah, it was kind of like, what are these people doing? What are these posts about? And I remember just being so. It was so funny to watch you with your posts because you were so positive about everything, and it was just like
if I'm like really serious and positive, they'll never know it's me.
You were interacting with people who hate your guts, and you were just so positive about it, and it was just funny. That was a good time, and then we did the whole 3 hours and 1 hour and
yeah.
And I remember this was the coolest thing. I thought, like, we were gonna drop the logo. We hadn't even told the name yet, and it was like, we're gonna drop the logo in 24 hours, and we had people just waiting with anticipation to see what this logo was. They didn't even know who we were yet, and it was just a fun time.
It was. Yep. Last night I said it in the Discord, but when I finished the show, I just kind of sat there, in silence for about 5 minutes because I had sort of this feeling of like achievement, but also, like you said, like it's the end of something, and I wouldn't call it sadness, but just kind of like, wow, that's the last thing I'm gonna write at the very least for Triad. It felt it felt special, important. It took a moment to kind of reflect on it. Initially, when I talked to you guys and we decided to do this, I came back because I had two goals that I wanted to achieve left in this game. One was to start a new Fed and get it to the heights that I felt OCW had achieved. And the other goal was to successfully run a Fed with at least one co-owner, because I've never been able to do that because I'm a psychopath, And I can look back and I can say with pride that I achieved both those goals, and you guys helped me do it. And when I look on my eFed list now, I don't see a single thing on there that a goal left to achieve. Does that mean one won't pop up at some point? No, but it's just right now I just feel content, I feel fulfilled, and I feel very happy with not just the work I put in, but the work you guys helped me put in, and the work everybody on the roster that signed up and participated helped us put in.
Yeah, it was definitely the team effort, and just getting to hang out with folks and all that good stuff. I mean, there's so many moments that I look back and I'm like, man, we were doing something really cool, and seeing some of the responses to just like something simple like a graphic that I made or something like that. There's a good feeling attached to that when and this is not, I'm not trying to be narcissistic or whatever, but like, I feel like most of what we were seeing, at least while we did Triad, you might have had a place where they had some really great writers. You might have had a place that was great at results. You might have had a place that the graphics were crazy. But I just feel like we had everything, in that little bubble of, we were putting out top-notch graphics. We were engaging on social media. We had killer results. The writing from our handlers was incredible. And it was just this, something that I hope not necessarily a model, because if you try to emulate what we did, then you're already setting yourself up for failure just because
Yeah.
you need to do your own thing. But I
Yep.
hope this did at least show that there is room for something different in e-fetting. Not to say that we need to replace what the current model is, because I do think there's value in just traditional old, here we're in a wrestling ring and we're duking it out. But that if this would give inspiration for somebody out there to do their own thing, to take a chance and step out and try something, I think there's a void there now. Now that Triad is ending, I think there's a void, and if somebody swoops in and takes this with, I think the key, we said it earlier, I think the key is planning, having a goal. Don't just start something and say, well, we'll see where it goes, but have a plan, have a deadline. Even if you're planning multiple seasons, so to speak, at least have a time where you're gonna start and an end, and know where you think you're gonna go, and then be willing to pivot if the story takes you elsewhere. We didn't see the triumvirate coming in terms of that story. They didn't tell us that was the story they were writing, but once they wrote it, we had to run with it. It was just something that just had to happen with the course of Triad. So I hope in the game that we do start to see some innovation, that goes beyond just the wrestling ring, and try things. And if they don't work, they don't work. Who cares? It's just a game. You just try something different.
Yep. Exactly. You don't know how to create if you don't try. And you learn a lot more through failure than you do success. I mean, failure teaches you. Somebody who's never failed is somebody who's never tried. Basically, is what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
And you got. But yeah, I really hope there's some good feds out there. XWF comes to mind, but there's definitely room for a couple of new feds with cool concepts. And I hope people who are thinking about doing it, do it for the members, do it for the community, be transparent. For the love of God, don't role play in your own fed. And just be fair. Just be fair and call every pitch the same for every batter.
Yeah.
And if you do that, you're going to have a good fed, and people are going to like being
there. Yep. 100%.
So, well, we've got one more show to go, and it's got what I think is 14 of the best handlers in the game, all competing for one prize that's been a year in the making. So, what do you think, man? Should we get to posting it?
Yeah, once you hit that, click that button, and let's do it.
All right. Well, I gotta get up and get out. I'm in my studio now. This is where my laptop is. I gotta move over to my.
So
matriculate over to my desktop. So
here's what we'll do. We'll end it here. It's been a wild ride for Will, Pick, Bobby. Every time we did one of these early on, we had one last thing we had to say, but the trials are no longer beginning. So the only thing I can say is tonight, Sunday, May 26th, the trials end.